Hello everyone and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson 5.91 and in this lesson we're going to take a look at the first instrument container, the XY instrument. The reason I'm starting with the XY instrument is because I already know that this is what I would probably use the least, and I'll explain to you why I would use it the least. However, for some other people it might be something they go to all the time. So I've just loaded in a preset, and this is a preset that's supposed to show how the XY instrument is powerful, right? This is what the people from Bitwig have decided to make, and we can see right now that they have some post effects in here. What I'm going to do is just turn the three of these off to begin. And if you notice by looking at these effects, we have three effects that are really designed to try to glue sounds together. We have the EQ5, the compressor, and the reverb. Now with these off, if I go through and play around, there are a lot of locations like there and anywhere kind of in the middle where this is going to sound kind of awkward. It's not really going to mix very well. And even if I turn on the various effects that are going to try to solve that problem, there's still some moments in here that I just am not very fond of. For performing back live, something like the XY instrument could be pretty cool because you can just kind of morph this around and give an audience something they're not expecting really quickly. But in your own productions, I would never want to use something like this because, for starters, we're not actually morphing between these instruments. We're just evoking various crossfades. So if I look here at the polysynth in A and I'm playing a cross, let's turn it down so it doesn't clip. You can see that this instrument isn't actually changing. All we're doing is decreasing the output on one and increasing the output on the other, and it's on this kind of very linear path that we can't actually control specifically. If it was me, I would want an instrument track with an instrument layer on it with, say, just 2 polysynths for this example. And now, in this case, I really could have full control over how these were going to crossfade in my composition. And that's what I would personally like to see. Now, this takes it to the extreme because we have 4 instruments that we're crossfading between, and so it can get kind of out of control quickly. Obviously, that's why they've thrown in a post effect here. That way you can kind of control it. And with audio effects, with the XY effect, it works a little bit easier to crossfade just the relative levels between 4 effects than it does to try to crossfade between 4 very different sounding instruments. And remember, this is the preset that's included with it, and in my opinion, it doesn't sound very good. However, there still are some pretty utilitarian applications for the XY instrument. For example, if you have something like, say, I don't know, a dubstep song, or I guess they call it bro step, and you have to quickly change up between 4 different little bass parts, like a wobble, then maybe a growl, then some sort of talking bass, and then, I don't know, the sounds of pots and pans smashing against each other. You could do it like so, and you can keep this all onto one track, all with just one note being held down and playing. So if I go in here and put in, I'm not sure if this instrument actually sustains or not. We'll see. It doesn't really sustain, so it's not going to help me. Let me just go into all of these and turn their sustain up. Okay, so now if I go in here and I put in just one note, all right, we can play that back like so. I can now go into my macro controls, and I could map the X, and I can map the Y. Okay, so now I could go in, and I know that these relative positions are going to give me different presets completely. So if I throw the X all the way to the other side, that's going to give me something different. So I could go in here, change that, and hopefully I could snap that in right to the 2. This is just for the sake of example, so it doesn't matter too much. And then maybe what I want is to take the Y, and at the 3, I'll adjust the Y over to the other side. Okay, like so. And at the end, I'll have to go back to my x coordinate, which I'm not sure if it saved what I did there on the x before. Okay, so now if we listen to this back, we should get those 4 sounds playing at different points. Somewhere in there, something got... Oh, you know what? Stupid me. Either use the macro controls or use this. So I hope you guys saw my mistake there. Let me close this down. Okay, now I'll be able to get this right. Now I'm using the macro controls instead. So at 3, we'll just turn this up. So something like that could be really useful and quick. You could also use the drum machine in a similar fashion, but at least with this, we could also change the pitch of the note that's being played. So something like that is quite useful. The other application that I'd see something like the XY instrument being used is if you're performing live and let's say you're like the synth player for your band. Something you could do is instead of having to have a bunch of different tracks on here, you could use XY instruments in very logical ways. So for example, if we have our song A, I'll know that for the first song in the set, I'm going to be using this particular preset. And then for song B, when that comes on, I can just go ahead and flip that over or have a MIDI controller do it so people don't realize that I'm just using a computer to do everything. And et cetera, et cetera. Now people might be wondering, well, what if I need to be able to play multiple instruments at the same time, but I don't want to have to use a sampler? Well, there's a really cool way you can do that. Let's load in another XY instrument here. And now we're going to use our other MIDI effect to control this. And we'd have to pretend like now A is a different sound. So let's just swap this out for any kind of random preset. Doesn't really matter. What's box pluck sound like? Let's see. Okay, cool. I'll just pull this up an octave. All right, so right now, if I have these both set to record and I'm playing back, we're hearing both playing back together at the same time, and that's not what I want. So what I could do if I want to get real cheeky and creative is I could go in here, and inside of the note effects, I could add in a note filter. Okay, and this means that it's only going to play back when it's in a particular range of keys. So if we look here at one of these MIDI clips, I can go down to the bottom. All right, so this C-2 is indicating the 0 point here in the note filter. And likewise, if I go all the way to the top, we have, let's see, C, D, E, F, G. What is that? We can go up to a G8, okay? And that's indicating the 127 mark. So what I could do is I could say, okay, I only want this to trigger from keys 0 to 64. Or something like that. That was one of the craziest glitches I've ever had happen. There was no reason for that to occur, but it just did. So what this means is this is only going to play back if I'm hitting notes in between the range of 0 and 64. Okay, I've gone above 64, so I'm not hearing anything. I'm just trying to figure out where the next thing is going to fall. This is going to be more useful if you have a bigger keyboard. But now I know exactly the octave range that I want to play, so I could actually go in here then and take another one of these. I'm going to use the note pitch shifter. And now I could either pull this up or down an octave. So we'll pull it down 1 octave. So that's going to be where my bass sound is. And now with the other guy, I can turn this on to record. I can go into A. I could add in my note filters. This time I'll add in again the note filter. And this time I want it to go from 65 up to 127. So there's not going to be any overlap. So if this one's just turned on and I'm playing down in that region, I'm not going to hear anything, but hopefully we don't get that nasty error again. If I go above, like so. And then I can turn both of these on. So that is an incredibly powerful technique, and we could add in another note pitch shifter if we want to bring that to put it into whatever range we want. Now, I'm not a keyboard player, but for somebody who is, this is really, really powerful because you can now set up 4 kind of different instances here, and you could even add in additional XY effect, and you could shrink these ranges. So you could put one from like 0 to 12 or 0 to 11, and then something like 12 to 23. So you could play various octaves on your keyboard and have a number of different sounds going. I'm not sure people realize just how powerful this is. It allows us to completely bypass the sampler and then still have access to 4 different instruments. So for people playing back live, I think Bitwig is actually a very handy tool to trigger your synthesizer notes, and you can do this without people ever even having to see your keyboard. You can just transition through using macro controls or whatever. At some stage, you might have to turn on the computer if you have like your first 4 songs and then you have the second 4 songs or something like that. But very powerful. It can look very professional, and it's just a really, really cool technique. So I hope that's been helpful for you guys, and you'll hear from me again in the next lesson. Take care.